Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, January 31st, 2024. I am Dave Biddle flying solo on today's show. Final day of January. I don't want to see January end. This has been a fantastic month for Ohio State. I mean, if we would have drawn up the script like this, they would have ripped it up and said, this is the most ridiculous thing we've ever seen. There's no way that all of this good stuff is going to happen. But it happened. And then yesterday, we got a chance, the local media did, the Ohio State Beat got a chance to meet this very impressive five-man transfer class. They don't consider Julian Sayin a transfer, even though the recruiting sites consider him a transfer, because he technically is, because he enrolled at Bama, was there for a couple weeks, and then transferred to Ohio State. Ohio State considers him just a part of their 2024 class. So, but they brought out the five transfers, and what an impressive group of guys. We're going to talk individually about all of them, what to expect, and all of that good stuff. So welcome into the show. It's going to be a fun one because that was something that came up kind of at the last minute. I'm sure they had been planning on doing something like that. Ohio State was. But as far as us in the media, we got a notification the day before that this is happening tomorrow, 9 a.m. You might want to clear your schedules. A little bit look behind the curtain. That's how Ohio State operates. They don't give you with stuff like this a lot of heads up. It's like you have the opportunity to come down here and interview these guys if you want. If you don't want to, we don't care. No, but I also think, in all seriousness, I think yesterday was really good PR for Ohio State. I mean, just and again, I'm gonna talk about each of these guys individually. Just the quality of players that they got with these five, and then the type of young men that they are. I mean, I could not be more impressed. Could not be more impressed. All right, so what are expectations for each of these guys in 2024? Let's start right at the top. I guess you could say right, Caleb Downs or Will Howard. One of those two is the most important one, because Caleb Downs is certainly by any metric, the higher rated player. There's no doubt about it. And I absolutely love him. But Will Howard being QB1, quarterback being the most important position on the field. Both of those are huge. Let's start with Caleb Downs, though. I mean, he embodies what I'm talking about here, as far as like this young man is mature beyond his years. Like, I knew he was, for the little I've seen of him, I had heard him speak before, but like just bits and pieces. I heard more of Will Howard. I had not heard Quinshon Judkins talk, I don't think, much at all. I'll get to that in a little bit. I didn't know Downs was this. He's confident. He oozes confidence, but he's humble. And he just carries himself like a pro. And just says things that are just, if you saw them in print, you would think braggadocious, but just the way he says it, and then he'll then like follow it up, with something like, to show his humility, and it's not fake humility. For example, someone was asking him about his approach, like how he gets ready, and he said, "I'm elite in that respect." You think somebody says I'm elite, but then he explained why, because he loves breaking down film. He loves being in the film room. He loves determining what the opponent's going to do, what the next play is going to be. And as the quarterback of the secondary, he embraces the idea of getting his teammates lined up in the right spot. And then he said, I don't want to say that I was born to do this, but I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. I've been training to do this. So basically he was saying, I am born to do this, but he kind of caught himself. He said, I don't want to say I was born to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, he was born to do this, okay? He was born to do this. That's the vibe I get from Caleb Downs. He was born to do this. And we've seen it on film, how great he is already in college football as a true freshman at Bama. I mean, there's a reason he was the number one safety recruit in the country, and then follows it up. If anything, exceeded expectations. I don't think anybody predicted he was going to go in there and not only start, I think some people predicted he was going to start, but lead Alabama in tackles with 107. As a true freshman. This kid is a stud. He's not just a guy that's going to, make tackles on defense. He's super athletic, returned a punt for a touchdown last year. I think he'll at least be, at the very least, a part-time punt returner for the Buckeyes. Jaden Ballard, they're going to use him as well. But, and you don't want Downs back there every time returning a punt. He's fantastic. So we're going to have a couple of really, really, really good number twos on this team next year. Assuming Court Williams is okay with Caleb Downs taking that number 2 from him. But Emeka Egbuka on offense, still crazy he came back. Caleb Downs on defense. So what to expect from Caleb this year? I mean, a lot of times the sophomore years when you could say it. I mean, he's coming off. He was the freshman of the year, period, in the country. National freshman of the year, regardless of position. Caleb Downs was. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect he's going to be a first-team All-American. I mean, name me all the safeties that are better than him. And what coaches say, you make your biggest jump from freshman to sophomore year. And we've seen it at Ohio State. Look at some of the big-time stars that have come through Ohio State. Like I'll use like Joey Bosa, for example, Zeke Elliott, both on the national championship team. Both guys just had their best years as sophomores. Still were good as juniors. But that's when it kind of tends to come together. Not always. Like Denzel Burke's a guy that would look great as a true freshman, struggled as a sophomore, and then had a great junior year. And I still can't believe he's coming back as a senior. It's another great thing that's happened. I think expecting a lot out of Caleb Downs is fair and super reasonable. I mean, I think him being an All-American is definitely in the cards. Now, if he falls short of being a first-team All-American and he's like a third-team All-American, is that a disappointing season? No, of course not. But man, I don't think where it's like, maybe by his junior year he could be a first-team All-American. It's like, no, and it's just amazing. This secondary is amazing with Lathan Ransom coming back, and now you got Downs, and Downs is going to be the adjuster. Lathan's going to be the bandit. Both are perfect for those roles. And then with Jordan Hancock coming back, he's the slot. Igbinosun coming back, obviously, and the aforementioned Denzel Burke. I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. There's been some awesome secondaries in the last, 20, 30 years at Ohio State. We think of 2016 with Malik Hooker and Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley. I mean, you got 3 first-round picks in the same secondary. Pretty damn good. 2019, with those guys. Fantastic secondary, Jeff Okudah and Sean Wade and Jordan Fuller and those guys, like really, really, really good. My gold standard is still 1996. When Antoine Winfield as a sophomore is your third corner, and maybe you could argue he should have been starting over Ty Howard as a second corner, but Ty Howard was good as a senior. Sean Springs, the best DB in the country that year, was a corner. Ty Howard, the other starting corner, as a senior. Antoine Winfield, again, number 3 corner as a sophomore. Maybe my favorite player to ever come through Ohio State. And then he had Rob Kelly and Damon Moore at safety. That's my gold standard, 96. That's when the Silver Bullets were born. There's still that Sports Illustrated picture of Rob Kelly flying through the air and basically like he was getting hit by a Penn State offensive lineman, but that caused him to basically kick the Penn State quarterback in the head with his cleat. And no penalty was called. It wasn't like he got blocked into him, but that place. The point was, that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That embodied what that defense was. You get guys just flying around like silver bullets. Dare I say, 2024 might be better than 1996. Sacrilege, possibly, but those 5 that I just talked about when you're talking about Downs, Ransom, Igbinosun, Burke, Hancock, geez, and then you're bringing Jermaine Matthews off the bench as your number 4 corner. You got Malik Hartford. They still have Malik Hartford's going to be probably the top backup safety. They still have Jahad Carter on the roster. Now maybe he'll transfer again. I don't know. But this secondary is going to be amazing, and I think you can expect a lot out of Caleb Downs immediately. All right, Will Howard. I saw some people say initially, I'm getting some Kyle McCord vibes by looking at him. And I'm like, listen to the interview. Watch the interview. By the way, watch the Caleb Downs interview. We have them all on our YouTube page. They're all about 20 minutes long. It's fantastic. Listen to Will Howard. Like I said with Caleb Downs, Will Howard carries himself like a professional. Listen, he sounds like an NFL quarterback. Does he look maybe like he does look like for a big, strong 5th-year senior quarterback with all these starts under his belt and everything, he does look a little young. I get it. He got a little bit of a baby face. But I'm telling you, listen to this guy. He gets it and then some. He's a natural leader, which is what I've been told. I told you guys before, a parent of a current player told me that their son, her son or his son, I'm not even going to tell you if it's a mom or a father, told me, my son told me that Will Howard's the real deal. As far as when they're out there throwing, as far as his command in the locker room, when the guys go out and just hang out, watch TV, whatever it might be, he's the real deal. And that's hard to do when you're coming into a place like Ohio State and you've been there for 2 weeks for all the guys to embrace you. Okay, so I think that's important. I think he's a natural leader. I like what I've seen on film from Will Howard. People say, and he even talked about this, his stats are skewed if you look at his career stats because he threw a lot of interceptions when he was a true freshman and a sophomore at Kansas State. So he's going to have the weapons he has around him. He's a tough kid. He's every bit of 6'5", 240. I met him. I'd like to say I looked at him eye to eye. It was more like, nice to meet you, Will. And, he looks you right in the eye and says, nice to meet you. And same thing with Caleb Downs. Those guys are just mature beyond their years. Especially, Caleb's only like 19 years old, I think. Will is a fifth-year senior. Kind of you expect him to be mature. I expect big things out of Will Howard. What does big things entail for 1 year of Will Howard? First team all Big Ten quarterback, which now when you're adding in Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, not very easy. Not that it was easy with 14 teams, but sometimes in the Big Ten, especially this past year, the offenses were lacking, to say the least. But I expect him to be first team all Big Ten based on his skill set, his experience, his ability to run the ball. And he said, Ryan Day and him have talked. He knows it's not a huge part of the offense here, but he believes they're going to run more than they have in the past with him. He said they had a ton of called quarterback runs at Kansas State. He knows it's not going to be like that here, but it's not going to be like maybe it's been. Maybe it's going to be somewhere in between, talking about not necessarily when they had Fields, but when they, the 2 years of Stroud and the 1 year of McCord. Sounds like they're going to be running the ball a little bit more. So just Howard's skill set alone, that's one of the reasons I expect big things out of him in his one and only year here in Columbus. Obviously, the other reason is the other big reason is the weapons he has around him. And he talked about this, just to have Emeka back. that's huge. And it fits so well because you got this young core of sophomores and freshmen wide receivers that are super talented. You don't want to necessarily, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world to go into the season with just Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and, Jermaine Smith and all these guys, Mylan Graham. It's just crazy. On and on and on. But to then have all those guys, plus you have the veteran presence in Emeka, and he's not just a veteran presence. This guy was the number one wide receiver recruit in the country coming out of high school. Emeka was fantastic as a sophomore. As sports fans and media, so a guy gets injured and doesn't put up the stats, you kind of think, oh, is he really that good? We know Emeka is fantastic. There's a reason he put up the numbers he did as a sophomore. Yeah, it helps when you have C.J. Stroud throwing you the ball. I get it. But there's a reason he was projected as a first-round pick by everyone going into last year. So having him back is huge. I expect big things out of Will Howard. I don't expect him to win the Heisman, although I won't be surprised if he's sitting there in New York because he's a solid quarterback. I also don't want to put too much on him. He's not like – because if he was fantastic, he'd be in the NFL. He'd be going to the NFL right now. He said himself, and he almost did because he got that Senior Bowl invite, and they told him you could be as high as a third-round pick, as low as a sixth-round pick. Again, I encourage you to watch the interview. Impressive young man. I think if you're a Buckeye fan, you can expect him to be really good and a good fit in this offense. And that's another reason I think he's going to have a big year, playing in a Ryan Day offense. So when people talk about Kyle McCord got a raw deal at Ohio State, those of us, I think most of us disagree with that are close to Ohio State. But people just look at the stats. They're like, well, look at the stats. I look at that and say, Ryan Day was able to get Kyle McCord to put up those stats. Now, it's easier for me to say that now. Let's see what McCord does at Syracuse. But if Will Howard comes in here and does what I think he will do, we're going to look back on McCord stats and be like, that was just a masterful job by Ryan Day to even get that out of him. That wasn't like, oh, well, Ohio State made a mistake because Kyle McCord had these stats. It's like, I think playing in a Ryan Day offense and with Bill O'Brien being here now too, this isn't the Ryan Day offense with, training wheels on Brian Hartline as offensive coordinator. This is Ryan Day's offense with Bill O'Brien. I don't know if there's an offensive coordinator in college football right now with more chops than Bill O'Brien. Say what you want about him. How many offensive coordinators in college football right now can match his resume? And Ryan Day's proven, and this allows Hartline to do what he does best, and he'll still be involved in everything, but can just basically be the wide receivers coach and a guy that, gives his thoughts. I still have Joe Philbin as a analyst. You have two former NFL head coaches as analysts, or not as analysts. One is an analyst and one is the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Two guys on the staff, Bill O'Brien and Joe Philbin, former NFL head coaches. I love that. But Bill O'Brien was a fantastic hire. And I think that's another reason the Ryan Day offense, the Bill O'Brien influence. And I think Bill O'Brien is coming here to run Ryan Day's offense. He's not coming here to do the Bill O'Brien offense and Ryan Day's going to get on board with it. No. He's coming here to tweak, enhance the Ryan Day offense, which I think is perfect. The Ryan Day offense is not broke. It needs some tweaks and needed a better quarterback. It's a better offensive line play. And I think with Seth McLaughlin was a good get at center. We'll get to that. I'm going in order here. Caleb Downs, we covered him. Will Howard, getting ready to wrap him up. I really like Will Howard. To me, that was a great get. There wasn't a Justin Fields in the portal this year. I think what's going to happen with Will Howard, he's going to have a really good year. Nothing elite, but a really good year. I think Ohio State's going to be elite, and he's going to take them where they want to go. And maybe he will have an elite college year. I still don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. But I think he's going to turn himself into like a second-round pick, you know. And they said at best he would have been a third-round pick this year. Probably would have been more like a fourth-rounder. And maybe he will work himself into a first-round pick. But I think he's going to have a good year, and very good year. And Will Howard's going to work himself into being a second-round pick. So there you go. All right. Quinshon Judkins. There's a lot of talk, and I tend to think this might be sour grapes from Ole Miss fans. I don't know. You get on their boards, like, oh, Judkins, yeah, he produced on the field, but he was problem in the locker room and this and that. And, you know, geez. I tell you what, he's another guy. I was very impressed with him yesterday. Very impressed. And, you know, can people sometimes put on an act and, you know, you fall for it? Of course. But I tend to think I'm pretty good at seeing through BS. If someone's, you know, if it's fake humility or they're actually humble. And he seems to be just an affable guy. He is excited to play with Travion Henderson. They already knew each other. He understands you need 2 running backs or more, especially in the modern age of football. I mean, he gets it. He gets it. I think, you know, everybody was like, oh, well, Ole Miss fans were bashing him. It's like, well, what would Ohio State fans be saying if Travion Henderson transferred to like Florida or something, you know, or Emeka had transferred to Texas? So, you know, I mean, just like people would be pissed off if you're an Ohio State fan. Hopefully you wouldn't be resorting to that stuff. But still, I mean, that's the reality of being sports fans. Like one of our guys leaves for another team, we feel scorned, and we're going to then, you know, drudge up every little rumor. And I do believe there maybe was some strife between Judkins and a couple of his teammates. That doesn't mean that was necessarily his fault. I don't know enough about it. I'll tell you what, though. I love that they have this kid, especially considering the fact that he knows he's going to be splitting time with Travion, and he's cool with that. And we haven't talked to Travion yet, but word is he's okay with it because he knows he wants to eventually play in the NFL. He's got a nice NIL deal at Ohio State right now, Travion does. He doesn't need to be out there getting 30 carries a game. Ohio State doesn't want him getting 30 carries a game because he'd probably get hurt. So if that's true that Travion's okay with it, that's fantastic. That'd be the one reason this wouldn't work out, is like chemistry problems. And I love having Judkins, and they complement each other well. So, and you still have Dallin Hayden around, James Peoples as a true freshman. So Judkins was very impressed with, again, another interview you guys need to watch. There's only 5 of them. So carve out about a minute or an hour and 20 minutes and watch all after the show, of course, after this show. And Caleb Downs, Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Seth McFarland, Seth McLaughlin. How often am I going to call him Seth McFarland? Seth McLaughlin. I guess that's better than calling him Sarah McLaughlin. By the way, he used that when people were asking how to pronounce his last name. He was like, it's McLaughlin, like Sarah McLaughlin. There you go. He's another guy. I thought we're going to get to him in just a second. Another guy I was really impressed with. And then, of course, Will Kacmarek is flying under the radar, but I think that's a sneaky good get too. So Quinshon Judkins, what to expect. If I'm a betting man, and word has it I am, I would bet Judkins. If I say who's going to be the leading rusher this year, well, Judkins or Travion, you know, or somebody else. It's not going to be somebody else. I would say Judkins. Here's why. Durability. Now, maybe this year Judkins will get hurt, and Travion won't have any durability issues. But what's been the issue with Travion the first couple of years? Durability issues. Not toughness issues. He's tough. Durability. Judkins has shown none of that. He's been very durable. So I'll say Judkins leads the team in rushing, but I'm thrilled to have them both. What a great 1-2 punch. That could be the best 1-2 punch in college football this year at the running back position. Too bad they don't have any good wide receivers or anything to go with it. Oh, wait. And the most stacked defense that I can remember at Ohio State. It's unbelievable. This D-line. Linebacker is the one thing that they got to work out on defense, but the secondary and the D-line, unbelievable. Anyway, all right, Seth McLaughlin. I almost called him Seth McFarland again. Seth McLaughlin. I really like this. I know he had some snapping issues. He was talking about how he's working hard on snapping. Another guy that comes across like a pro. You know, and this is another that doesn't surprise me. Guy coming, he was 25 starts at Bama under his belt. 25 starts at Bama under his belt. And fifth-year senior. He's got that typical center attitude where you can tell he's smart, but he likes to joke around a little bit. Husky, you know. not saying he's going to take his shirt off, like Jason Kelsey and be drinking beers with Taylor Swift in the suite, but he's got that kind of, maybe not crazy like Jason Kelsey, but he's got that. I don't know. You know what I mean? That typical center, like there's a lot of them in the NFL. The Bengals have one in Ted Karras. We could go on and on. There's something about those centers. They're smart. They have to be. They're like the quarterback of the offensive line. Ask any offensive lineman. They love telling you how they're the smartest guys on the team. Sometimes they are. Quarterbacks usually are, actually. But offensive linemen often are very like some of the smartest guys on the team because they have to do a lot of stuff. And the center is the quarterback of the offensive line. He's got that moxie, Whippler had some of that. I even think Hinsman does. I hope Carson sticks around. I really like Carson Hinsman. Young guy, at the very least, can back up center and back up guard and maybe challenge for a starting guard spot. Injuries happen. I hope Carson Hinsman sticks around. Then he still has 3 years left, 2 years after this next year. But I like getting McLaughlin. I really do. I'm glad they got McLaughlin and not McFarland. You wouldn't want Seth McFarland to play center. McLaughlin, I really, really like him. I like the experience. I like everything he said about snapping and it just got away from me a little bit, but he's working hard at it. It was funny. He's still going on and on about talking about snapping. I mean, we were asking him about it. Patrick Murphy, our own Patrick Murphy, asked him a couple questions about snapping. And then it's obvious he's playing center. Bill Kurlick's reported he's playing center. There's no doubt about it. And he's going on and on about talking about snapping. It's obvious he's playing center. And another reporter has some point blank. So you're definitely playing center. And, and they're told not to tell the media too much. So then, especially about depth charts and stuff like that, and you're definitely playing this position. Although Caleb Downs told us he's the adjuster. So anyway, then McLaughlin, kind of caught himself and said, well, that's up to the coaches. Nothing set in stone there. So he's playing center. Good get by the Buckeyes there. Good get. And maybe they'll still go after a tackle late. I don't know. Maybe they're okay with sticking with Fryer at right tackle, or maybe Luke Montgomery at right tackle, move Fryer inside. And if Fryer doesn't win the starting right guard spot, maybe it'd be Tegra or the aforementioned Hinsman or somebody else. But Luke Montgomery seems to be like a guy that's on the rise, played a decent amount as that sixth man as a true freshman this past year in jumbo packages. So maybe Luke Montgomery would be ready as a sophomore. I'm getting greedy. I'd like to see them get one more offensive tackle. Worst case, it'd be depth, but I don't want it to be a depth piece. I want it to be a guy that come in here and start. But if they think Luke Montgomery is ready, or they're okay with Fryer, we'll see what happens. All right, last but not least, I think this guy is. I mean, he's least as far as like the rankings of this incredible transfer class they got, but still, I love getting Will Kacmarek, this tight end from Ohio University. 2 years left. He's a guy that is a really good blocker. 6'6", 260, and we know that's your number one job as a tight end at Ohio State. But he's a good, receiver. He's over 20 receptions each of the last 2 years at Ohio University. Listen, he's not going to come in here and be like a Mackey Award candidate, okay? But like they needed a tight end, and this is a guy that can come in at the very least, not just have warm body for depth, but at the very least can be solid depth. And I would bet he's going to be the starter. Now, G. Scott's going to play a lot. I think Jelani Thurman's going to play a lot. Maybe Jelani's going to be the starter. Maybe G will be the starter. Someone tells me this kid's going to be the starter. Regardless, all three of those guys are going to play a lot. And they use a lot of 12 personnel. So all three of those guys are going to play a lot. Jelani Thurman has all the talent in the world. If everything comes together for Jelani, he'll be the starter. No questions asked. Will he commit as much to it as he needs to? Will he mature as much as he needs to? If he does, then Jelani's going to just take that job and run with it. And eventually he will do that at Ohio State. Will it be this coming year as a sophomore? We shall see. But Kacmarek with his, and meeting him yesterday, he every bit of 6'6", 260. Another guy that carries himself like a grown man. He's a big boy, and he's strong. And again, he's a two-way tight end. He's not just a blocker that's out there. He can catch the ball. Not extremely athletic, but he'd be my betting odds to be the starting tight end. But suddenly it's a good problem to have because I was worried about tight end depth after losing Cade. But now with Kacmarek, with Jelani Thurman on the rise, G. Scott coming back as a fifth-year senior. Now G's got a lot of snaps under his belt. G has sneakily racked up a lot of snaps under his belt these last couple of years, and he continues to get bigger as a fifth-year senior. G. Scott's going to be a guy that can help out, but they needed a tight end, and they got one. Other guys that can help out a tight end, Bennett Christian's coming off that suspension. He'll be a third-year sophomore. They got the LeBlanc kid coming in. You can't expect a true freshman to do anything at tight end. I mean, look at Thurman this past year. He's the most talented true freshman tight end they've had maybe since Ricky Dudley. I mean, and he barely got on the field as a true freshman. So the Max LeBlanc kid's not going to get on the field as a true freshman. But Bennett Christian might be a guy that can help out as that like number 4 tight end, or if guys get banged up. So suddenly I like the depth at tight end. They needed one. They got one in Kacmarek. What an impressive group of guys. I could not have been more impressed yesterday. Again, I'm wrapping up the show now, so carve yourself out about an hour and 20 minutes if possible. Watch all 5 of those videos. We were supposed to get each guy for about 15 minutes. We got them all for at least 20, sometimes longer. So pretty cool for Ohio State putting that on for us yesterday, but I think that was good. I think that was good for everybody. As far as Ohio State media, we loved it, but I think that was good for Ohio State because what are we doing? I'm sure I'm not the only one talking about, wow, not only is this group impressive on the field, these guys are impressive off the field. And I shouldn't be surprised by that. Every year I talk about, and I tell people close to me that don't know this, that wonder how the guys really are. I'm like, it's amazing is this is Ohio State, and they're bringing in all these guys that are superstars. They know they're superstars. They've been told how great they are. I'm always impressed with the level, the quality of young man at Ohio State. The quality, I felt that way throughout my time covering the team. It feels like even more so than ever now. These guys come out and they just impress the heck out of you. These last few years, not even including these guys. Then these 5 guys come out, and I shouldn't have even been surprised about how damn impressive they were. So you're getting 5 really good players. One that's going to be a superstar in Caleb Downs. I mean, this guy's going to be a superstar. It's not like, there's a chance Caleb Downs could be a superstar. He will be a superstar. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. You can say he already is. I mean, my goodness gracious. So that was a lot of fun yesterday. Again, watch those videos. You guys will be just as impressed as I am, or your money back. Oh, the show's free? Still, I'll give you your money back even though the show is free. All right, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate you guys. I'm Dave Biddle. Dan Rubin will be with you tomorrow. Thanks again. Appreciate you guys joining me for the Bucknuts Morning 5. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.